Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'm back for another episode, and you're in for a treat today because I have Shabu Halder, the co founder and CEO of Appknox. And we're going to talk about a topic that I don't think gets enough attention, certainly in our world of corporate compliance, but that's mobile application security. So, Shubo, first of all, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me today.
Thank you so much, Tom, for inviting me for this episode. Looking forward to it. Yeah.
Could we start off with your professional background?
Sure. So I am into mobile app security for more than a decade now. I've been working on this for 12 years now. I started by presenting a paper on the first mobile malware which I developed. And I talked about it in Black Hat, DEFCON, and different cybersecurity conferences about it. And my application security background has been more than 13 years now. I've been working on that, got into a couple of hall of fames, Facebook, Google, and stuff like that during my earlier days. And now I'm more focused in running my company called Appknox, where I'm leading the research and development of the product on mobile app security to defend rather than attack, which was my earlier alter ego, but now to defend these mobile applications from such hacks. So a quick introduction about me. Yeah.
So, I'm always intrigued with founders and co founders for the following reason. Typically, they have seen either a market need or a market opportunity, and they've moved to either fill that need or take advantage of that opportunity. Sometimes it's a little different, but I wanted to start by asking you what's the market need you either saw or a market opportunity you felt was out there that led you to co found Appknox?
That's a great question. Actually, 11 years ago, it was just a growing market. What we saw in the market was there are tools which kind of solves the web application scenario specific issues, and the compliances were more focused towards web applications and network devices and things like that, but not on the mobile application part. But mobile were also not really matured at that point of time. Going forward, slowly we started seeing a lot more maturity in terms of security for the mobile application market, which has started coming up, and we started betting it early on. And what we have seen now is there are companies who are just mobile only. They don't have a web app, they don't have anything else, right? You interact, the primary interface of interacting with these companies are via the mobile applications, right? And that brings in a lot more focus area. The second part about the market maturity is initially 10, 11 years ago, when we started Appknox, there were no specific tool focused on mobile application. It was all focused on web application and others. But what we realize is mobile application itself requires a very different approach than what web application is. And just to give you a very small example, let's say there is an update which you want to do. Let's say there is an issue or there is a compliance break. You kind of fix it and then you push it in production, and in a web app it immediately goes out and you get to see the change. But in a mobile app, that's not how it works. You kind of put it in the app store. Now it depends on the user to actually go ahead and update the application. It's a very different workflow altogether, right? So there has to be tools which actually works on the tandem of how mobile application maturity cycle looks like, or the SDLC cycle looks like, which is pretty different than how web application SDLC cycle looks like. So we saw those opportunity, and that's how we started Appknox. Right now, the market is pretty matured enough to understand that they need separate tooling and applications for mobile specific use cases. So, yeah.
Shabo, if I could ask you to tell us about Appknox's security assessment of Perplexity's Android app. What prompted this, and what are some of the key vulnerabilities you and your team were able to discover, and maybe some of the broader implications of these findings?
Yeah. So what our team keeps doing is they look at all the real world case scenarios or application which are getting more used worldwide, and we try to figure out is there what is the security maturity for those applications. What we started seeing is AI related application has started coming up, and these are mobile native AI applications, right? And we started doing a series of testing. We started with DeepSeek, and then we went with Perplexity. What we figured out in Perplexity is the classic mistake which a developer do when they come from a web background to a mobile background, where they are not able to understand what are the different things which needs to happen. For example, in a web background, there are things like phishing or clickjacking, and these are terminologies which are used in web background. But in a mobile background, we use terminologies like strandhog or JNS vulnerabilities, right? So these are a little bit different. It's not only the name of the terminology, but the kind of attacks are different. So one of the issues which we found in Perplexity, which I want to really highlight, is one can actually overlay a fake application window on top of the Perplexity application window, and then they can interpret or kind of do a man in the screen attack, right? It's not like a man in the middle attack, but man in the middle via the screen, right? So whatever you're typing in Perplexity will be captured by this third party application, and that's very much possible with the Perplexity application right now. Also, the second thing is the SSL pinning, which is also a very much required in terms of compliances for a mobile application, because this client side application, it's the responsibility of the developer to validate the SSL certificates, because application might connect over rogue Wi-Fi access points, and it is the responsibility of the developer to write that piece of code saying that, hey, you probably are connected to a rogue access point where the SSL certificate is not matching, and I'm going to throw you an error. Unlike in a web application, you don't have to care about it because the browser takes care of it, right? You connect to a rogue access point which emits a fake certificate or a invalid certificate. The Chrome browser at least throws you a red page saying that, hey, SSL certificate has a problem. Unfortunately, for a mobile application, you need to actually code that piece of part. And few other things which we figured out is obviously hard-coded strings. A couple of API keys which are being used internally are hard-coded in the binary. Now, this is a common misconception. If I write the keys in the code, in a piece of code, probably the keys after the app gets compiled, the keys are going to get obfuscated, or one cannot get the keys back. But we are able to decompile the application and very easily and get those keys back. So there's some of the issues which we found in Perplexity, which I wanted to highlight. But again, these are very classic issues which happens when someone comes from a web kind of a background to a mobile kind of a background, and which you need to keep in mind. Yeah.
I was very intrigued by your thoughts around the regulatory blind spot that you see here in the United States. Start particularly around obviously mobile apps, but could you maybe start with giving us an overview of US security, cybersecurity frameworks, and then maybe get into some mobile specific guidance and the issues you think that need to be addressed?
Sure. So there exist a lot of matured cybersecurity compliances in the US region. If we talk about NIST, or if we talk about and each specific state also has their own privacy policies as well, where, a strict guideline about how data privacy has to be addressed, how personal identifiable information has to be addressed, are talked about. But unfortunately, most of these are focused towards network or web based policies. Now, if you look at how devices are evolving nowadays, right, let me give you an example. Right now, if you have your mobile device, it has all your credit card information, all your very personal information with you, which your laptop may not have. So a policy for your device is also kind of a mandatory, which I don't see exist right away. And some of these policies regarding mobile applications are a little bit far fetched. So we kind of map it to them, but those are specifically for how data is being ingested or how an application in general should work. Right now, there is this amazing group called OWASP, and they have come up with a kind of a policy for mobile application security standards, and it's called MASVS. So that's mobile application security verification standards. At Appknox, we also kind of contribute to that standard as well. And that standard has been now picking up. Even Google is trying to get those standard internally in their web pages. So if you go to the documentation, let's say Strandhog is one such vulnerability which we found in Perplexity, right? Which is kind of a clickjack kind of an attack, but for mobile specific. If you actually search for Strandhog vulnerability in Google documentation, it kind of points to the OWASP MSVA standards, right? So Google is trying to adopt that, and Google started something called Google spearheading along with Meta and others, Microsoft as well, starting something called ADA along with Linux Foundation. ADA is application standards, which is again being tried on, and we are also a part of that. So we are trying to bring these standards in the US market region as well. And these standards are pretty much important, and we understand that these standards are not common yet, right? So we need to try to build the standard, and then we need to try to map the standard with different compliances which are out there in the market. So that's what the whole effort right now is happening in the region.
I must say, I'm becoming more nervous and more nervous the further we go into this podcast. How do you say you're going to sit down with a new customer who's a large multinational company, thousands of users? Who are you talking to? Are you talking to a CISO? Are you talking to a compliance officer? Are you talking to a CTO? Maybe all of the above, none of the above, or maybe even a CEO? Who do you, when you sit down with a large multinational, who is your customer typically?
So we need to understand that we are talking with couple of, it depends on the use case. So if you're talking about Fortune 500 companies, majority of our customers are Fortune 500 companies. One of the biggest blind spot for a CISO is the number of assets, mobile application assets which they have, because they do not have a direct control over those assets which is published in App Store or Play Store. Just imagine a CISO who is handling like a Fortune 500 companies who has more than 100 applications in the App Store. A few of these applications have been decommissioned, and they have no idea whether those apps are still there in App Store or Play Store. And one of the major pain point is that for them to come to us and ask, hey, is there a solution which Appknox can provide us, which kind of helps us in figuring out what are the different mobile app assets which we have, right? That's the first fundamental problem which they want to try to solve, right? And then we talk to security, head of security as well. With head of security, it is more about assessing these mobile applications in a periodic way to make sure the compliance standards are there, because they can go, most of these companies are already SOC 2 compliant, already ISO 27001, 2003 compliant. And according to those compliances, you need to perform a kind of a VAPT activity on all of their asset, including their mobile asset. And that kind of becomes a little bit problematic for them, because now if they're dealing with 100 mobile application as an asset, it becomes the problem is about scaling. And that's why they come to us and talk to us about. And for we also talk to a lot of CEOs as well, but for them it is more like, and these are the kind of companies where the primary interface is the mobile driven interface, right? Which is, let's say, let's talk about companies like Uber or DoorDash, where their primary interface is the mobile related interface. That's the primary way of their revenue generating model. And for these kind of companies, we work with both the CEO and the CISO, because that's their crown jewel, and they wanted to understand what is the ROI in terms of investing on the security of those kind of application asset. So that's how it kind of we kind of work towards the compliance managers. So we do work with them as well, specifically the CRO, the chief risk officers as well, because mostly they also have some issues in terms of fake applications which are out there in the market. And we recently launched something called StoreKnox, which kind of looks at that, where we kind of see if there is an phishing application or a clone application in the market. Problem is, it's pretty easy to actually create this cloned applications which you have, because most of the people who tries to download this application from third party app store marketplaces, hey, do you want to buy this application for $2, or can I just search in the internet and get something free? And who knows whether those free application has something inside it or not. And that kind of creates a lot of risk and attack surfaces for these companies. So we are also talking to compliance guys, we are also talking to CROs to make sure that we are able to find these applications in the wild and give them a way to take those applications down as well. So yeah.
In the entire debate, at least in America, about whether the company should be required to supply a mobile device or you can bring your own mobile device and use that for company business, no one is talking about this topic. This seems to me to be, if not one, at least 1A of concerns. Is it just a lack of education, a lack of awareness, or something more?
I think it's lack of awareness plus I would say also the easiness of security, because sometimes what we keep hearing, being a security guy ourselves, right, security and functionality has to go hand in hand. The
Right.
moment and people will be like, hey, why are you asking me to change password every week, versus we are saying that, hey, changing password is actually good, you should, right? But that's the functionality versus security kind of a debate, I would say. But also lack of awareness as well. Now, bring your own device was something around 5 years ago, because the thing which they were trying to solve is a very niche and a very small problem, which is like enterprise documents or enterprise data should not be leaked outside. And that is it. That's what the mindset was. But the issue is you need to take a step back and understand from a more broader perspective. It's not only about devices leaking internal information, but it is also about external attacks towards your internal infrastructure as well, right? It's not only about inside out, but it's also about outside in, right? And that's how it has to be tackled. Unfortunately, most of the BYOD companies which were there was only focused on one specific area, but there exists a whole complex area as well. And that's what we are trying to approach as with, like, it's not only about internal to external, but also external to internal, how everything works, right? It's not only about whether my data is going to get leaked outside or not, but also is there a external vector by which my internal data can get leaked, like via phishing app or via clone apps or things like that. So yeah, that's the complete range, I would say.
So let's turn to AI because I think many users are becoming aware of the potential of an AI based attack, either through perhaps a deep fake or audio, video, or some other, but also the defensive measures you and your team have been able to create utilizing AI. So could you maybe walk us through some examples of AI powered cyber attacks and then how you and your team are developing AI defensive strategies?
Absolutely. I think AI based attacks have an upper hand right now, because even if you do not know how to attack, it's pretty simple for an AI to actually help you in creating those. And it becomes a must for a company like us to defend those AI based attacks. Just imagine in a world of security, a phishing email used to be so easy to figure out. Oh, there's a spelling mistake, or there the tone seems off. And now with AI, a phishing email simulation looks like it is actually a proper email, and becomes so much difficult. Now, to transfer, to kind of take that as an example to mobile application as well, it was very difficult to create cloned application and things like that. But right now it is so simple. You can go to any vibe coding, that's the terminology people use, where you don't need to code, you just type in your prompt and that kind of creates an application. Come on, I can say, hey, can you create a clone application looking like, I don't know, like a banking application which accepts username and password and stores it in a database in remotely. That's it. That's all you need to actually create a fake application. That's it. And it is becoming a lot more rampant in the world of mobile application, I would say. And what we are trying to do is we are leveraging AI to fight with AI, right? Which means we are trying to figure out whether an application is a fake application or not. And that's where we are utilizing our main probability of figuring out whether this application is actually interacting with the proper application backend servers or not, and utilizing AI to do that. That's one. The other things which we are using AI is also to figure out what are the different PII informations the applications are executing internally. Just to give you a simple example, I might have a mobile application which is probably taking my username, password, credit card information. And most of this mobile application will have analytics solution. And this is a very common problem of AI, right? In this analytics solution, let's say analytics or a ad solution. And this analytics or ad solution are collecting metrics and data in your mobile app, right? Just imagine if this analytics solution is also collecting your credit card number or your username or your password and transmitting it to the analytics database. Now, they might be dumb because they just need data to be transmitted just so that they can show you a much more targeted advertisement, or it shows you what are the different fields you are filling up according to analytics. But unfortunately, it is also leaking those PII data and information. And we are able to figure those out, right? And we're able to tell or help the developers to fine tune the SDK implementation in a way that, hey, I'm not supposed to send those important PII data into those analytics, because by default, it captures everything, right? So we are using AI to help developers to fix issues. We are utilizing AI to figure out fake applications which are coming up in the app stores and play stores and in the internet. And we are also using AI internally to figure out security issues as well and prioritize those issues in terms of helping developers fix those. So that's what we are doing.
Let me turn to the development life cycle and why mobile app security needs a left shift approach. Could you talk about the importance of integrating security early in development? And then what are some of the best practices for implementing what you've termed the left shift approach?
Yeah, just to give you a very small example, let's say I'm a developer, I'm writing a piece of code, and I write a security issue, like the piece of code which I have written has a security issue. If I immediately fix it, literally the cost of fixing it is amounting to zero, right? But let's say if that piece of buggy code goes into, let's say, the GitHub repo or the Git repo, and goes to a CI/CD pipeline, and that's where it gets figured out, hey, there's an issue. And now for a developer, I have to spend some time, create a ticket, download the source code once again, fix it, go and push it back to the CI/CD pipeline. It costs you more, right? The more you shift right, the more costly the fix is, right? And just imagine if I transplant it to, let's say, this buggy piece of code goes to production. Now, for a mobile app, it's a huge problem, because now once it goes to production, you do not have control over the production application because it is now in Play Store and App Store, right? It's a shared responsibility between the company and the user as well, right? So now let's say a buggy piece of code goes into production. Now for the developer to fix it and then push it back to production, it also depends on the user to go ahead and open the App Store or Play Store and update the application to get the recent updated app, right? I can guarantee you today, like even if you have auto updates on, there there are applications which are not yet updated in your mobile app, in your mobile device, for sure. I can guarantee you that, because that's how we are, that's how we kind of work, right? And that's why the more shift right you do in a mobile world, the more costly it is to fix bugs, right? And hence shifting left makes a lot of more sense. And that's what we try to do. So we try to figure out issues even before it is pushed to production, so that it is much easier and cheaper for developers or companies or businesses to fix those issues before it goes out in production. And then we also have a way to figure out whatever which has been pushed to production, is it even secured, and can we bring it back, minimize the cost for the companies and businesses to fix those issues if it has leaked into production. So that's the overall story about shift left. And I think it is very important for a mobile app specifically that shifting left is pretty much important than any other kind of application which is there. So I hope that kind of makes sense to understand how critical it is to shift left for mobile application, actually. Yeah.
It does. Shubha, unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode. But before we leave, I wanted to ask you if our listeners wanted to connect with you or find out any more information about Appknox, what would be best place or places for them to go?
Great. So I was talking about perplexity, AI related issues, and we have done a series of blog posts about it. Please visit appknox.com/blog, and you will get to see the whole series of the posts which we have done. The latest one, which we are going to release, is on ChatGPT as well. And to reach out to me personally, please reach me out in LinkedIn. You can search my name, Subho Halder. I'm the CEO at Appknox over there. You can search me. I have an emoji before my name, and that's who I am. Drop me a message. Happy to answer anything. And of course, if you are looking to find more tips and tricks, please join our group. It's called Mobile Security Tips by Appknox. It's a LinkedIn group where we discuss more about all of these issues, and we kind of help the community or give back to the community as well using that. Yeah.
I'm going to shout out to that because if you're listening to this podcast, you have to check out their resource section. Let me just tell you what the titles are listed as: blogs, infographics, case studies, reports, ebooks, cybersecurity jargons, white papers, webinars, guides, and events. And the blogs alone are worth the price of admission, which of course is free. but it gives you a fabulous resource to start this journey. So I wanted to, whoever does that for you, kudos to them and kudos to you guys for putting this sort of great information out. This has been, I don't know if I'd say I'm more terrified, but I'm certainly thinking about it more. But I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me, and I hope we can continue this conversation.
Absolutely, Tom. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much.
Compliance Podcast Network. Start your mornings with daily compliance news, quick, sharp updates on the top compliance and ethics stories in under 5 minutes every morning in Compliance Podcast Network. Because compliance never sleeps. Need practical advice fast? Check out Compliance Tip of the Day. One actionable idea to level up your program. Short and sweet, every day on Compliance Podcast Network. Got 10 minutes? We've got the week's top 10 stories. 10 for 10 brings you the big compliance headlines. Fast, fun, and focused. Every Saturday on Compliance Podcast Network. And don't miss the Sunday Book Review, where compliance meets culture through must-read books and big ideas every Sunday in Compliance Podcast Network. Whether you're in the office, on a walk, or commuting, stay smart, stay ethical, stay tuned. Only on the Compliance Podcast Network. Available wherever you listen to podcasts.